Hey guys, JTS here, and today I'm gonna get more into Swami Vivekananda's Practical Vedanta. It's gonna be part two of that from his Jnana Yoga or Knowledge Yoga, and let's just get right into it, right? Here too, we see the same idea of practical religion. The things which they were worshipping, such as fire, the sun, the moon, and so forth, and with which they were familiar, from the subject of the stories, which explain them and give them a higher meaning. And this is the real, practical side of Vedanta. It does not destroy the world, but it explains it. It does not destroy the person, but it explains him. It does not destroy the individuality, but it explains it by showing the real individuality. It does not show that this world is vain and does not exist, but it says, understand what this world is, so that it may not hurt you. The voice did not say to Satyakama that the fire which he was worshipping, or the sun, or the moon, or the lightning, or anything else was all wrong, but it showed him that the same spirit which lived inside the sun, and moon, and lightning, and fire, and the earth was in him, so that everything became transformed, as it were, in the eyes of Satyakama. The fire, which before had been merely a material fire in which to make oblations, assumed a new aspect and became God. The earth became transformed. Life became transformed. The sun, the moon, the stars, lightning, everything became transformed and deified. Their real nature was known. The theme of Vedanta is to see the Lord in everything, to see things in their real nature, not as they appear to be. Then another lesson is taught in the Upanishads. He who shines through the eyes is Brahman. He is the beautiful one. He is the shining one. He shines in all these worlds. A certain peculiar light, a commentator says, which radiates from the eyes of a pure man, is what is meant by the light in the eyes. And it is said that when a man is pure, such a light will shine in his eyes, and the light belongs really to the soul within, which is everywhere. It is the same light that shines in the planets, in the stars, and in the sun. I will now read to you some other doctrines of these ancient Upanishads about birth and death and so on. Perhaps they will interest you. Svetakatiku went to the king of Panachilas, and the king asked him, do you know where people go when they die? Do you know how they come back? Do you know why the earth is neither full nor empty? The boy replied that he did not know. Then he went to his father and asked him the same question. The father said, I do not know. And they both returned to the king. The king said that this knowledge was never known to the priests. It was known only to the kings, and that was why kings ruled the world. They both served the king for some time, and at last the king said he would teach them. The other world, O Gautama, is the fire. The sun is its fuel, the rays are the smoke, the day is the flame, the moon is the embers, and the stars are the sparks. In this fire the gods pour the libations of faith, and from this libation King Soma is born. So on he goes. The gist of the teaching is this. You need not make oblation in that little fire. The whole world is the fire. And this oblation, this worship, is continually going on. The gods and the angels and everybody are worshipping it. Man is the greatest symbol of fire, the body of man. Here also, we see the ideal becoming practical, which is basically the whole point of this entire section, is just practical Vedanta, trying to explain the Vedantic viewpoint in a practical means. It's already extremely practical and extremely logical, although people would probably not guess that. But the West doesn't even know what yoga means. They think of just one branch of it, and there's, I think, 8. At least that's how they normally refer to it, Ashtanga, or however you say it, the 8 limbs of yoga. And they tend to think of Hatha yoga but there's so much more. Like, this here is knowledge yoga, which I've been quoting to you, and it's realistically just union of the mind with something. And, yeah, that's realistically all it is. And you could, in the beginning of Crowley's, The Equinox, he even goes through and shows that the same branches of yoga are in magic, that it's all really the same subject. But I digress. Back to, well, man, that has a lot more to say than I probably ever will. But maybe I'll get lucky and I'll actually push further than he did. But I really doubt that. It'd be cool, though. Here also, we see the ideal becoming practical. Brahman is seen in everything. The principle that underlies all these stories is that invented symbolism may be good and helpful, but symbols better than any we can invent already exist. You may invent an image through which to worship God, but a better image already exists, the living man. You may build a temple in which to worship God, and that may be good, but a better one, a much higher one, already exists, the human body. Which I think that's interesting, especially just the way it's explained, because you'll always hear people mention like the human body as being a temple, but I feel like Vivekananda actually goes through the trouble of trying to explain it in a practical way, as well as a religious way, because I think you need to do both. Because one really isn't enough. Not anymore. Not anymore. We've grown as a species, and I think although we've become a bit more objective and, if you could say, scientific, if you want it, although I don't really think the word fits. I think people have a very false notion of what science even is as a concept, let alone as a subject, but that's for another day. So I think it does help for both. We're at a point as a species where we just need something that cuts through the center of it all and can actually explain things and isn't based on some sort of dogma alone. It's based on solid evidence, and from that solid evidence is created a dogma in which will reinforce good values and just a positive future for mankind. I think that's what we need to do. We need to turn to these old religions that are nearly forgotten or are all but forgotten, and try to pick together and put together what made them, endure time, what made them, important to man, and try to create some sort of almost universal religion from all religion, if possible. And it needs to exist in a fashion wherein there is no religion that cannot be expressed through it, that it needs to be able to explain them all. If it's not capable of doing that, then it's not really universal, is it? And I think that's the great task that man has to try and accomplish. I think that's the one thing that could actually maybe help us from these silly, egotistical paths we've been on for so long, to realize that I am not the I, but the we, that we are all just this one. But I digress. You remember that the Vedas have two parts, the ceremonial and the philosophical. In time, ceremonies had multiplied and become so intricate that it was almost hopeless to disentangle them, and so in the Upanishads, the ceremonies are almost discarded, but gently, by having their deeper meaning explained. We see that in the olden times, people had laid these oblations and sacrifices. Then the philosophers came, and instead of snatching away the symbols from the hands of the ignorant, instead of taking the negative position, which we unfortunately find so general among modern reformers, they gave them something in their place. Here is the symbol of fire, they said. Very good, but here is another symbol of fire, the earth, where sacrifice is going on day and night. What a grand symbol. Here is the little temple, but the whole universe is a temple. A man can worship anywhere. There are altars made by men, but here's the greatest of altars, the living, conscious human body. And worship at this altar is far higher than the worship of any dead symbols. Now, let's see, I have 3 minutes. We now come to a peculiar doctrine. I do not understand much of it myself. I shall describe it to you and see if you can make something out of it. When a man who has by meditation purified himself and got knowledge dies, he first goes to light, then from light to day, from day to the bright half of the moon, from there to the 6 months when the sun goes to the north, from there to the year, from the year to the sun, from the sun to the moon, from the moon to the lightning, and when he comes to the sphere of lightning, he meets a person who is not human, and that person leads him to the condition Brahman. This is the way of the gods. When sages and wise persons die, they go that way, and they do not return. What is meant by this month and year and all these things, no one understands clearly. Each one gives his own meaning, and some say it is all nonsense. What is meant by going to the world of the moon and of the sun, and by the person who comes to help the soul after it has reached the sphere of lightning? No one knows. There is an idea among the Hindus that the moon is a place where life exists, and we shall see how life has come from there. When those who have not attained to knowledge, but have done good work in this life, die, they first go through smoke, then to night, then to the dark half of the moon, then to the 6 months when the sun goes to the south, and from there to the region of their forefathers, then to the Akasa, then to the region of the moon, and there become the food of the gods, and later are born as gods, and live there as long as their good works permit. This is called the way of the fathers. And when the effect of the good works is finished, they come back to earth by the same route. They first become Akasa, and then air, and then smoke, and then mist, and then cloud, and then they fall upon the earth as raindrops. Then they get into food, which is eaten by human beings, and finally become their children. Those whose works have been very good are born in good families, and those whose works have been bad are born in bad families, and even in animal bodies. Again, those who do not travel either by the way of the gods or the way of the fathers, those who have done vile deeds, become insects, being born and dying almost instantly. That is why the earth is neither full nor empty. I don't think I can find... Yeah, those are the 2 ways. I just wanted to try and get into that quick because I thought it was interesting. I thought all of this, to someone that's new to the whole bit of it, would help give a little bit of background on how Vedantic view or Vedanta fits with the older doctrines. And the way Swami Vivekananda puts it throughout is that in India, at least in his time, I don't know if it still is the case, that there were plenty of people willing to, take the time and discuss religion with you, all in an attempt to, create something better and newer. And he mentions different reforms that went through Hinduism, and it's all really interesting to me, at least, because I think it's something we need to go through on a larger scale, if we can.